the sixth Sunday of Easter, also Mother's Day. The scripture from John chapter 15, verses 9 through 17. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you to go and to bear fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask him in my name. I am giving you these commands so that you may love one another. The vine. Now in my 71st year, I recall with greater clarity than I could have hoped for, that in my earliest years, the smile of my mother thrilled and lifted me. She had a way of raising her eyebrows that opened her face to make it shine and glow. She was all delight and joy, and her honesty of spirit and ever-welling exuberance infectiously gripped and shaped her children too, all 7 of them. I bear witness to the truth of this and call upon my 5 surviving siblings for the confirmation of their testimonies. Mom was born to a farmer named Horace and a force of nature named Julia nearly 100 years ago. She was born the 3rd of 11 children to my grandmother, so fertile and so strong that it belied the petite frame in which she walked, talked, sang, and worshiped. Mama, as we all lovingly called our grandmother, lost her own mother before she was 5 years of age. She had been raised in the love of her grandmother, who had been a slave and who, after the war, made certain to get her children, all 12 of them, conceived with her slave master, out of the sweltering oven of Virginia's lost cause into the cooler clime of western Pennsylvania. Celie Washington had a reputation, according to family lore, even during the whiplash period of slavery, for exercising a supernatural power over the forces of nature, as when she commanded the flooding waters of a river's run through western Virginia to overrun the land to a border on its banks she determined, but no farther. Oh yeah, I believe it. This line of women on my mother's side nurtured powers elemental and prodigious. On my father's side, I can still feel the bussing of my cheek. His mother, Marjorie, always made me grateful to receive. I can still hear her sing out the lyric to My One and Only Love as I plucked it out on the piano, that piano that I implored my mother to purchase in my 16th year. I note that each of Marjorie's daughters shared her frothing elation in gatherings for family and for friends, and that these gatherings always became parties with food and drink, and most of all, laughter. Laughter hearty enough to make the house shake in its timbers. My paternal and maternal aunts birthed each and every one of my cousins, whose mutual cares and affections give me just permission to make bold my boast that my life remains blessed in the braided vine of so much love and so many joys. My brief remembrance of these women, the 3 women who called my father brother and the 6 women who called my mother sister, my memory of them is my garden to till, my duty to husband, and my joy to pass along. My memories have sustained me all these years and nurtured in me a will to bear fruit, the kind that gave me strength, the kind that gave me purpose, and the kind that I may store without ever suffering rot or spoil. I remember the sermon still my Aunt Edie preached in my wife's first church in Harrisonburg, Virginia, a sermon so rich in spirit I felt myself converted all over again. Why Set Ye Here and Die was its title, and the church was emboldened anew with the fire of faith. Preach, Aunt Edie. I remember how Aunt Sarah put a touch of gravy on her little finger for my youngest son to suck, the better to wean him off the bottle to his energetic delight. He never saw the bottle again. I remember Aunt Thelma playing Santa Claus for my brother and me over the telephone in our earliest years, and how we squealed with glee even when we knew it was her all along. I envy Aunt Doris's way with just the right cuss word, in just the right time, in just the right way, and with just the right person, and with a wink in her eye. Aunt Doris, to this very day, still has skills, baby. She still has skills, mad skills, and I labor and strain to emulate and to steal them. I could go on in this gardening way, turning the soil at the root of so many splendid fruit-bearing memories of all my aunts, memories of Margaret, Anne, Ruth, and Madeline too. Happy birthday, Aunt Matt. And sweet Joan would hold court as a blossom so fragrant, I would be loath ever to leave her presence. The scent of love in the air is a spell she weaves even from beyond the veil. I am the fruit and the growth multiplied of all the gifts that are my inheritance from these women. Women so stout and fair, women who suffered, bled, and rose again with the wind of the Spirit beneath their wings. Now Jesus commanded his disciples to keep his commandments. And the chief of all of these is that they should love one another as he loved them. It may strike us as odd that Jesus commands us to love as though we might turn it on and off like a faucet, as Billie Holiday tragically sings. To be sure, Jesus makes love categorical and imperative. Even, we might say, categorically imperative. But this coercive sense of duty makes the weight of love unbearable, unbending, and unsustainable. It would appear that love becomes a mask under these onerous conditions, a pretense without respite from labor. We know in the end that our hearts cannot be forced, cajoled, or enslaved. They can only be given. But when Jesus required that his followers love one another, he did so by supplying the condition under which it made sense to make the ostensibly impossible command. Abide in my love. That is to say, live in and dwell in his love, as though the only way to grow or flourish is to remain entwined with the root from which we draw our being. Jesus' image of the vine from last week's gospel reading is precisely the point here this week, and Jesus renews that image in his reference to fruit this week. Keeping the commandment Jesus bequeaths us is to do precisely what we are made to do. We are born in love, nurtured in love, and consummated in love. Our whole being is love-natured, love-saturated. And so the command to love is a command for us to be what we already are. This command is the most liberating of all, for it calls us into our own most potentiality for becoming fully and completely our own most selves. I am fully realized, wholly bloomed, when I supply the condition for you too to become fully bloomed. Jesus' love becomes Celie love, becomes Julia love, becomes Elizabeth love, becomes Edward love, becomes the love for all my family, for all my friends, for all my parishioners, for all my students, for all of you. But what is the fruit to be born? To be born out in the full ripening of love. Jesus gives us the answer. Jesus says the origin of his love is his Father. And we know already that the love of the Father is to flow in all the Father has ever made. And that love is not tasked, coerced, or compelled. It is the unfathomable origin of play. Play for no other reason than play itself. Play for its own sake. Play without an end beyond itself, but play for the free-for-all glee of it. Running, dancing, jumping, belly-laughing joy of it all. I have said these things to you that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete. The fruit of the commandment to love, then, is joy, inexpressible, transcendent, all-encompassing joy. Do you need an example? This is Mother's Day, is it not? I remember years ago how annoyed my brothers and sisters and I became when we had all attended a Pittsburgh Pirate game with our mother. We were all in very high spirits about the Pirates' prospects that year. But our mother had no real attachment for either team that played, neither our beloved Pirates nor our hated nemesis, the Reds. We became annoyed early on in the game because Mom had the unnerving habit of cheering lustily for every ball hit, every ball caught, every ball pitched, every run, every slide, and every out. Didn't matter when or by whom. It did not matter. She would cheer and hoot and holler and exclaim in a loud voice over any and every part of the game, however inconsequential. Irritably, we tried to calm her down because we felt awkward to appear to others to be mere novices of the game. Inning by inning, Mom had drawn the attention of other fans around us, and they began to be amused with her enthusiasm and her unchecked exuberance. Before long, she had them all laughing and cheering with her, even if it was a foul ball that had been hit into the stands. It was infectious, I must say. We too began to laugh. But Mom was unrelenting. When the ball hit the catcher's mitt with a stadium thundering thud, Mom would exclaim, "Woo! Boy, he threw that ball!" When the ball cracked with ear-shattering sound off the hitter's splintering back, Mom would shout out, "Hit that ball, boy! Hit it again!" It makes me laugh even now to remember. Joe Morgan, the formidable hitter. Some of you will recall Joe Morgan. You're not a baseball fan if you can't remember Joe Morgan. He was a formidable hitter from the Big Red Machine. He came to bat in the bottom of the ninth. The stadium held its breath as Joe stood there, his sturdy forearms hovering over home plate as he wielded his Louisville slugger aloft in the dry, crisp air. The corkscrew pitch came in a bit high and a little outside. It seemed too far to chase, but Joe swung just the same and caught the ball full on the broadest part of his bat. His arms swung round and his powerful shoulders added enough torque to accelerate the bat on impact that the ball fairly exploded in a high arc way out over the left center wall. Joe Morgan crushed that pitch, and the stadium hushed, but only for a split second. In that moment, my mother leaped to her feet and cheered and clapped as Joe rounded the bases for the solo home run in the entire game. We kept trying to tell Mom to sit down, that Joe was on the other team. Mom! And but she cheered all the same, without shame, without remorse, and without restraint. She cheered for the sheer enjoyment of Joe Morgan's exquisite performance. Mom kept saying, maybe he plays for the other side, but did you see how high he hit that boy? Boy, that was beautiful. Everyone around us had to admit she was right. That if we had to lose to anyone, it was best to lose to Joe Morgan, a baseball player with few equals in the history of the game. We left the field after the game had ended, and though our team had lost, we could not stop laughing at how Mom had borne the fruit of joy. The game was but the pretext, but all the joy was Mom. Our branching vine, bearing a rich harvest of love in Ricky and Pam, in Dwayne and in Charlie, in Jimmy, in Julie, and in Skippy too. Once we had returned home, we told the neighbors about our outing with Mom. We took turns play acting her outbursts, her hurrahs and bellows. Our friends on the street where we lived laughed out loud as we described it all in our fevered sport. Y'all's mom is something else, they said. Mrs. Scott is a hoot, they remarked. Mom is crazy, we said. The truth be told, Mom was the life of the party. She got Jesus just right. Amen.